Doom vivamos vivamos Epicureans. This is the BCE Comics Pod one-shot edition. I'm your host, Nick Smith, and I'm joined by...
Stojr from Stojr Shelf. How's it going, Nick?
I'm doing well, particularly since we're participating in Kurtis Findlay's Epic Marvel Podcast Reading Club, and this one-shot is going to be our brief thoughts on today's issue, which is Marvel Fanfare number 40, Deal with the Devil. Obviously, this is just one story in a Marvel Fanfare comic, so we don't see Storm on the cover, although I think she's on the back cover, which I didn't pull for this video.
Which is odd because, like, when I pulled the cover for this to look it up myself, because the cover is, I don't think the cover's in the bonus material, actually. But that's Angel, right? Like, unless it's some other bird person?
Yeah, no, that's Angel.
So that would suffice to say the other stories about Angel? I mean, this isn't on Marvel Unlimited, so I couldn't look. I don't know. So why wouldn't that be included? He's an X-Man.
No, that's a fair point. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea because I haven't read this one. I think I've decided in my mind that I need to get the Marvel Fanfare Omnis to check these out. Which of course I'm now 2 back and a third one's coming out. But hopefully I can find those for a reasonable price, and maybe then I'll find out. I'm not sure which one this is in.
I think that Fanaticals that I told you about has at least one of them, if I remember correctly. You might want to check that out.
Okay, yeah, I might take a look there. All right, well, let's get into this issue, or this story, I should say. This is written by Chris Claremont, pencils by Craig Hamilton, inks by Rick Bryant. All right, now this story takes place when Storm leaves to go find Rogue. Storm still has her powers. So this is just before she loses her powers. Apparently, Storm had been contacted by Mystique to talk through the situation about Rogue, and Mystique also informed Storm where to find Rogue, hence why Storm was able to find her. But we also learned that Destiny had a vision that whoever rescued Rogue in this event would be hit by Forge's depowering gun, and so Mystique basically set herself up for a victory here by taking out one of the more powerful X-Men. All right, Stojr, what's your thoughts here?
I thought that it was a necessary and interesting story, right? I think the little footnote in the Uncanny X-Men points you to go pick up the Marvel Fanfare book, and it's got a good little interlude. It's a good character development for everybody involved here. I thought the art was interesting. It's not necessarily my cup of tea all the time, but for something that's supposed to evoke this sort of like 80s nightclub action, it works. It fits in there. Seems like 80s nightclubs were like a really interesting places with some of the dressing that was going on, as well as the interacting with the help there. But we'll let that go and see. Just let that be for earlier times. I think Mystique kind of playing around with Storm here in the as her sister and things of that nature make it very interesting, as well as like the ending with her and Destiny. So I think this is a cool little story. Like I think it fits well. It also reminds me of, and I don't remember exactly where I read this, but when we were doing the some of the God Loves Man Kills like bonus material where they had some interviews with Claremont, and I forget if it was in there or if that just led me to look up some other things. But sort of Claremont was saying somewhere about how he just kind of put it out there in the open without putting a label on it that Mystique and Destiny are together, right? That they love each other. And like like reading this for back then, like, I mean, that's just completely obvious. So I don't know what, as a reader, I would have thought in 1984 or 1985 about this, but they're just kind of putting a lesbian couple out there. Now, granted, she can change form and all of that, but they're just putting a lesbian couple out there and just not shining a spotlight on it, but not shying away from it either, really. So
yeah.
Anyway, what do you think?
I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like I don't remember Claremont saying that or seeing that somewhere. Maybe I miss her. I just don't remember. But I was thinking, wow, this sure seems like they're hinting that Mystique and Destiny have a lesbian relationship here. But you're right. They're not. It's not being played over the top. It's not wallowing in it by any means to I don't even know what you would say to that. What virtue signaling, is that the term that's often being used today? But in 1984, they probably wouldn't have anyway. I mean, gosh, in the 80s, you had the AIDS crisis, which was being blamed on a lot of homosexuals, right? So to have a lesbian couple in a comic book probably would be quite risque. So yeah, I don't know if that was the intention, but it sure kind of reads that way, and maybe that's looking at it through a modern lens, or maybe that is Claremont's intention. I don't know.
Yeah, and the interview that I might have read it in was when we were talking about the God Loves Man Kills, I was also doing some research into the whole Nightcrawler relationship and things like that. And there was, I know that there was a like a Marvel Pride issue, or maybe it was like the wedding issue where Destiny and her get married. And there's definitely an interview in there. So I was reading multiple interviews with Claremont at the same time, so I might be mixing up where they've seen it, but he said that, whether that's retrospective or it's not like it was an interview from 1984. It was a more modern interview.
Sure.
So
Okay. Well, yeah, either way, interesting, and, why not? Nothing wrong with that. And I agree with you with the art on this one. It's weird, it's intriguing, it's interesting. So I enjoyed it. I don't know. I don't know if I would have preferred it to be woven in with where it would fit chronologically in the book, or if it's better separated at the end here. I don't know, because it's made mention in that one volume where Rogue, or when Storm goes off to find Rogue, so why not weave it in? But it's fine. It doesn't matter that it's at the
not
end.
weaving it in gives you a little bit of a hook, like you said earlier, of how Mystique kind of knew about the gun. And I guess she kind of knew about that, but that she knows about the gun. So, whoever goes to rescue Rogue might get hit with the gun and things like that. So, to take Storm off the table. Right. So,
Maybe that would then take away from the impact of life death itself, right? If we, as the audience, know that this is all set up by Mystique, maybe that would lessen the, I don't know, the emotional pull of that one story when she's, with Forge and trying to figure all that out. I don't know. I'm theorizing. All right. Any other thoughts on this issue, Stoger?
Nope, this was a short one. Other than what I said earlier, why is Angel on the cover and I don't get to read an Angel story? But whatever.
Well, fair enough. Well, this is the last story in the volume, so we're going to get to bonus material here. I thought there's an interesting mix in this volume. There's not a lot of your typical original artwork, with the exception of 2 alternate splash pages for Kitty Pryde and Wolverine number 6. And honestly, I understand why they switched it to the one that they had, but I think the original version, let me actually pull it up, since I've got the comic viewer here. The original version for the splash page of number 6, I think Al Milgrom was doing something quite interesting. It didn't end up in the final one. Oh shoot, my cursor disappeared. There we go. All right, so you've got the one on the left there is the original one that Al Milgrom did, and you see he's got a little note there saying, hey, let me know if that's too close to where we ended things and I can change it. And he did change it to be the one on the right. But what I thought was interesting is he had set up the title of the book, Honor, with Wolverine being silhouette or highlighted by the moon or something like that in the background to be the O in the word honor. I thought that would have been really cool, but that doesn't end up on the final page.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. So let's see. That's kind of essentially the most original art we get. There's some posters in here. We get a Marvel Age article on the limited series of Kitty Pryde Wolverine, plus an editorial cartoon, which he did in Marvel Fanfare, but this was to be an introduction to the collected version of the Kitty Pryde Wolverine miniseries. So that's really it for the bonus stuff. Stoger, any thoughts on that?
Not specifically on the bonus stuff, but I don't think I mentioned this last time. There's actually a sequel to this series, and they collect these things chronologically, so it wouldn't make sense for them to put that in here. But there's another Kitty Pryde and Wolverine miniseries that was published last year, and it takes place at the end of issue 6, and it kind of squeezes a story in between the end of that story and when they get on the plane. I flipped through it on Marvel Unlimited, but if somebody's interested, they really like this time period, you can go check out some more stuff there. And
Okay.
it's written by Claremont.
Okay. Very nice. Cool. All right. Well, let's wrap up the volume then. For X-Men Epic Collection Volume 11. Gosh, the sixth one in this series of reviews that Kurtis is hosting. This is a fine volume, but I'm not sure there's anything too outstanding for me. The Life-Death storyline itself and the events before and after Storm losing her powers, I thought that was interesting. And it certainly begs the interesting question of, can the leader of a superhero team not have superpowers, right? Where's that going to go? The Kitty Pryde and Wolverine miniseries seems to really just kind of tread the same ground that we got with the Wolverine miniseries in many ways. And no doubt that was trying to milk the popularity of Wolverine, but to tell a story with Claremont's favorite character, the one X-Men in his main group here that he invented. I thought the art was consistently good throughout, give or take some of the miniseries. There's time I think Al Milgram's art in this one is good and works for what he's trying to do, but other times, it's a little rough. Anyway, my thoughts on this one, I'm going to give this one an 8. It's good. It's not outstanding.
Yeah, so for me, what I enjoy a lot about this book is it starts to bridge the gap of things that I never consistently read before, right? So a lot of my collected editions or single issues kind of ended with the opening issue of this book. So there's nostalgia with the Scott Honeymoon issue, with the JRJR art. I've read that before and kind of had this feeling like I wanted to see what came next. And while I've picked up like an issue here or there, kind of the reading them straight through and having the connective tissue is not something I had ever done before. I think I mentioned that, the issue where that the cover of this book comes from is not one that I ever read or kind of knew about. I think Life-Death is the crown jewel of this book. I think it's an amazing story. I think it's maybe top 5, top 10 X-Men stories ever. But it's only a single issue in the whole book. While I think that a lot of the JRJR art is good and is helped by the various inkers and assistants or whatever they are throughout the book. The Kitty Pryde and Wolverine series really is an albatross that weighs down the back half of this book. So for me, I'm going to go with a 7.5. I have some nostalgia for this. I really like this book. Like, I enjoy it. I think it's better than average. But I think that, this is just not as strong as some other things we've seen. And I think, like, even as we get into the next volume and we start reading ahead, like, I don't feel like I'm going to be rating the next one too high. I'm going to give that more of a chance and kind of read through. So I think that there's peaks and valleys to Claremont's run here, and a lot of changes that happen within the book will sort of impact things. Sometimes he's just throwing he's got too many plates in the air, too many things going on. Or sometimes it just takes a little time for things to take root. Like, I really like the beginnings of, spoilers, Freedom Force here, or the beginning of the Evil Brotherhood of Mutants. But, they really haven't taken enough of a hold for me to, care. It's just basically their introduction so far. So that's where I'm at.
I think maybe another criticism to throw in there is he's integrating New Mutants much more, and we're not reading that. Which, granted, a lot of that is in the bonus reading if you're following along with that. I have not been, for my limitations of where I can get my books at the moment, and well, we're reading other stuff. But anyway,
well, to that point, I did speed run through the New Mutants first Epic Collection. I didn't read the Magic miniseries cover to cover yet, but I got through the rest of it. And they do introduce Michael Rossi, which would have made the Rogue issue in here a lot more impactful if we were reading both. And they do introduce Selene and where she comes from, so she wouldn't just kind of come out of nowhere as this mutant energy vampire. So there's definitely a lot of consistency across here. There's also a lot more of the government stuff that's happening with the Hellfire Club. Like we haven't seen the Hellfire Club because they're over on the New Mutants and more interacting with them there. They're not outright fighting them yet, but there's kind of like this, back and forth happening at the same time. So I think, yeah, I mean, you definitely get a wider picture, especially since both are written by Claremont. If you kind of cover this stuff at the same time, but heck, I mean, as we get into some of these new issues, like they're name dropping Dazzler, and I'm like, no, do I have to go pick up the Dazzler series now? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about Dazzler when we get to that one. All right, so we're giving this book a combined rating of 7.75 between the two of us. We really need to collate all those somewhere. I'll make a little chart. But again, if you guys have enjoyed our thoughts, follow us on YouTube. We're going to read, rate, and review a full Big Collected Edition comic once a month. And these daily one-shots, well, we're now going to move on to X-Men Volume 12, The Gift. So that will be next time. All right, Stojr, any final word from you?
No, looking forward to starting the gift.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys, and, well, we'll catch you next time.